SailGP is back. New year, new city, new racetrack. SailGP is shaking things up with the first ever race in Asia.
Happy to come down here.
On the waters of one of the world's busiest cities.
Let's do this.
Welcome to the Singapore Sail Grand Prix. Welcome to Singapore as SailGP opens yet another frontier in Southeast Asia with its 8th event of Season 3. The city-state and its beautiful marina provide a spectacular backdrop to the racecourse off the southeast coast, just 137 kilometers or 85 miles from the equator. Alongside Lisa Darman and Emily Nagel and Stevie Morrison, I'm Todd Harris. 9 nations will compete to create history by winning the inaugural Singapore Sail Grand Prix in its beautiful setting.
What is SailGP? It's high speed, high tech, high impact. 11 global events and an intense battle with 9 nations. Identical F50 driven by the world's best. And powered by nature.
Look at those speeds, dipping into 90 kilometers an hour.
Competing on a level playing field where both data is shared and talent actually matters.
Australia, they've got to keep clear of New Zealand.
It's close to shore racing in front of sellout crowds. SailGP exists to inspire the next generation of athletes and build a better future. There are 2 podiums, one for the racing and one for impact. It's all part of SailGP's race for the future, working towards a better sport and a better planet.
What a race! Oh, the Kiwis needed to get out of the way there. Oh, it's a collision with the American boat and the Spanish.
Join SailGP in the race for the future. Because our race is your race.
Well, the proposed schedule in Singapore looks like this. If Mother Nature cooperates, 3 races today, 3 more races tomorrow. Remember, that final features only the top 3 teams competing for the big prize here in Singapore. Well, after 7 events, Australia with 3 wins have widened the gap over New Zealand and looks certain for the season finale. But then look how wide open it is. New Zealand in second have 2 event wins. France has 1, and Great Britain continues to hang on despite having no wins this season. Denmark and Canada are just staying in touch, but is time running out for the USA, down on 39 points. Realistically, they must win this week to keep their hopes alive of making the grand final. Speaking of finals, at the last event in Dubai, we saw 3 of the top contenders turn on an absolute thriller. Welcome to Dubai, as the world's #1 sailboat racing league tackles a new frontier in the Middle East.
There's a big difference between second and first, and that's why everybody is always chasing to be the best.
You make your own luck in this game.
The French team has to be really focused.
The biggest threat is someone who performs in a final and can win that last race.
With the Dubai skyline in the distance, this is the final race.
Now this is the umpires, OCS penalty in Australia, over the line, start line early.
They're up and racing. Contandon Lapierre is shooting towards Mark 1. He's leading just ahead of 2 of the best sailors ever. Australia's back in the race here. I expect contact.
As they approach that gate, Australia have right of way. But then, all of a sudden, from out of screen, you see the Great Britain boat come flying in.
Here we go. Ooh. Oh, and Great Britain's back in it as well. Big manoeuvre for the Australians. He's got to spin it in front of the French. Great Britain's going to be on the inside. This is going to go down to the wire.
Come on,
It is really tight indeed as they all get together.
So in the space of 10 seconds, we had the boat that was coming third, now leading. The boat that was coming second, now in third. It was just all happening. I was sitting right there thinking, is this actually happening in a SailGP final?
I knew we had a chance, but I really didn't feel like the British were going to let us pass.
It's going to come down to the last manoeuvre here.
When you drop the board, it needs to get on the lock. And if it doesn't get on the lock, you can't turn the boat.
It just showed that everyone could do mistakes in this league, and the pressure is really high, even on the legends.
And for the Australians, it is back to their winning ways as the Fighting Roos bring it home for a victory in Dubai. So Australia, France, and Great Britain all showing their class in Dubai. Well, let's turn our attention to two other heavyweights which surprisingly missed out on making that final. The Kiwis who missed out through a penalty infringement, and the Americans who had a shocker on day 2.
The Kiwis have been second to Australia on points since August and must have been confident of taking the lead in Dubai, especially after Australia's poor first day.
New Zealand now. One more race to go and the victory will be theirs in race number 4.
Looking good with just 2 fleet races still to qualify for the podium race. Suddenly, at the start of race 5, it all went wrong when they infringed Switzerland.
Penalty New Zealand, relative Switzerland. Windward boat not keeping clear.
Sorry, guys.
Penalised 4 points meant they missed the podium race and its valuable points, much to driver Pete Burling's disgust. However, they are still in second place overall, 9 points behind Australia and still Season 3's big improvers. As for the SailGP USA team, after securing its first win in Saint-Tropez, the group has struggled with disappointing performances in Cadiz and Dubai.
So disappointed as we see the United States coming across in 7th, dejected on there. Erica at the back of the boat looks absolutely gutted.
Spithill and his crew have fallen off the pace and are now 21 points behind Australia. They have a mountain to climb and simply have to win at least 2 events to be in the running for the final. Looking for inspiration, the headline news on the American crew: Rome Kirby has come back on board for the first time since last season to take back his position of flight controller from Hans Henken. While there are different versions of why he's been missing in action, he's back now and supporters will be hoping he can help turn around their season.
Well, Singapore is not known as a major yacht racing center, but the response from the public to SailGP's visit this week has been overwhelming. Being so close to the equator often means light, balmy conditions, but even so, the practice racing, Stevie, has not been without its incidents.
Well, it's certainly been incident-packed and not good incidents for New Zealand. Here we are on board the Kiwi boat and we can see Pete Burling pushing as always, but just too close, too hard. Collision in the practice starting. Here we're on the umpap. Craig Mitchell, the chief umpire, this is how he sees things, and we can see contact. Contact is bad, and that leaderboard on the left-hand side of the screen there, look at that. -4 points before we even start racing. It's an unforced error. In my opinion, it's a pretty stupid mistake by Pete Burling in practice. How costly is that going to be here in Singapore? Well, Canada, the rest of the team's great chance to get some starting practice in. New Zealand did look fast. There is hope for Kiwi fans out there, but it's going to take some race wins for that New Zealand boat to get back up the leaderboard. And of course, Ben Ainsley and his British team, they kind of threw away victory in Dubai with some poor manoeuvres. Practice has seen some manoeuvres taking place. And well, with the addition of Hannah Mills back on the back of the boat, it's pretty good and hopeful stuff. Well, that was yesterday, that was practice. Now let's get down the water for the forecast with our very own Lisa Darmanin.
Well, it is looking tough out here. About 20 minutes ago, the boats were sailing around with one hull up in the air, but we did have some rain moves through, which has shut down the breeze. So unfortunately, it means that race management has decided to delay the start of the first race. It's because as the rain moves through, the wind gets really variable, and I can see that the sun's trying to come out and that wind's trying to go back to where it was forecast to be, and that's from the south. There is little puffs of pressure out here, so I'm hopeful soon enough it will settle and racing can get underway. The boats themselves have been trying to sail around and get used to sailing in this light wind, just like, I guess, a big wave surfer needs to know how to sail in the little white water. These sailors are going to have to prove that they can sail in the light winds just as much as they can sail in the heavy breeze.
All right, Lisa, much more from you and hopefully more optimistic news on the weather front as the day progresses, because the crowds have made their way down on what looks to be a beautiful day in Singapore as the Singapore Sail Grand Prix looks to get off to a start here. But first, Mother Nature needs to cooperate. Gives us an opportunity to talk tactics and technicalities, and as everyone knows, it is a very challenging sport. You have to be in the right spot at the right time, and that means sometimes, Emily Nagel, throwing in a maneuver that you aren't prepared for, or in this case, throwing a maneuver in that no one else is prepared for, and this is called a JK, and I like to refer to it as really sailing's version of a U-turn.
Exactly what we're looking at here today. So the JK is a maneuver that is essentially turning two maneuvers into one, and thus minimizing the time down speed. So it involves coming into the mark and tacking straight around it. Here we see GBR following behind, but also wanting to turn left at the favored mark. As they approach the mark, they drop the windward foil so that as soon as they reach the gate, it hits the lock, and they can pivot around the new foil using their downwind speed to keep momentum in the turn. This allows them to take advantage of the favored side of the course and thus gain distance up the ladder compared to the USA, but also gaining a clean lane. This can be a high-risk maneuver, and if done poorly, can result in the boat falling off the foils. But here we see GBR come in with speed, drop the foil onto the lock, turn straight away, and get into that clean breeze.
Well, yeah, and Ben, we've just been watching a technical manoeuvre. We like to call it the JK. You have a playbook out there on board the British boat, but there's not a lot of wind in the background. I guess the trouble with a complex mover like a JK is very easy to lose speed. Is that anything on your mind, any kind of play like that in these light winds we've got out there on the water at the moment?
Not really, Stevie, no. We're just trying to find whatever wind there is and keep the boat moving. So JK is definitely not part of the playbook in this stuff.
Okay, keep it simple. Stupid's going to be the plan out there for you guys today, I'm sure. And how hopeful are you? I mean, we can see some big clouds in the background. You've had some wind. Your crew telling you there's a chance of racing?
Yeah, I don't know. The wind's moving around a lot. It's actually just recently come around more to the forecast direction, which is a good thing. I mean, we're moving, so we could theoretically race, but it's going to be tough.
Nice. Well, and from this camera angle, I can see you got Hannah Mills up there on the grinding platform, which must be a slightly better addition than someone like Matt Gottrell weighing the boat down. How is it to have Hannah back out there with you on the water?
Yeah, power to weight is way up there with Hannah over some of these big boys, and she's got the smarts as well, so we're happy to have her on board today.
Hannah, I don't know how the fitness program's been going over Christmas, but those handles look pretty big in front of you. Ian Jensen on the other side of the boat, no doubt, is going to be wanting a lot of effort from you. Are you pretty glad to be back out there on the water?
Yeah, I'm really glad to be back. I think luckily in this really light stuff, I don't have to do a whole lot on the handles, which is probably good for everyone.
Well, Hannah, stay safe out there, and we hope we get to see some racing. It's good to see you back on board. So that's the situation right now. The racing has been postponed as we wait for official word from race manager Melanie Roberts before we can actually get racing. You see them making the moves to put the gates in better positions, as Ben Ainsley referred to. It looks like the wind may be shifting to the forecasted direction, which he said was good news. But plenty of fans have turned out here for the inaugural running of the Singapore Sail Grand Prix to see the world's best sailors fly these F-50s. And right now, we're just waiting for Mother Nature to do her job. Beautiful day on tap as we wait for the wind to come in and racing to get started. What is scheduled was 3 races today, and of course 3 races tomorrow. That last race being the final, and that's for only the top 3 teams. And Stevie and Emily, I've got to say, there's a lot of nervous teams out there because these are valuable points they need. So they came ready to go after the holiday break, looking to race. And one guy that maybe doesn't have the nerves the rest of the field does, that is, of course, being the skipper of the two-time reigning and defending champions, Australia, Tom Slingsby. He's got every accolade in his pocket with gold medals, America's Cup, but he's looking now for a third SailGP title.
My name is Tom Slingsby. I'm from Gosford, Australia. I first went sailing on Brisbane waters in front of Gosford. I think probably my first day sailing was about 5 years old, and I think my first time racing was about 7. My dad inspired me to get into sailing. He's always been a sailor his whole life, and then my older sisters got into it before me, and I just naturally followed. I think just to sort of relax and not to stress about it too much. Sometimes in the past I've been a bit wound up trying to get every good result, but really in the end of the day only the big ones matter. The very first boat I ever owned was a Sabo, and it was called Junior Burger. My sister got to choose which boat we bought, and the deal was I got to choose the name, and I realised my sister hated that name, and I quite enjoyed making my sister angry, so I called it Junior Burger. I think my first job was maybe working at the laser factory building boats, or it could have been a fisherman. I was a tuna fisherman for a while there, and yeah, I wasn't very good at that either. My favourite sailing destination, I think for SailGP I love the Sydney event. Having the F50s on Sydney Harbour is amazing. I'm a window seat guy. Once I fall asleep I just don't want anyone bothering me. Perfect conditions for sailing in F50. I think now that we've got the small wings, it's gone up a bit. I would have usually said about 15 knots, now I'd say 20 knots, flat water, tight racetrack. Somebody I look up to, well, I guess outside of sailing, it's definitely my dad. Yeah, he's just the values he has as a person and a calm nature and a good person. I'd love to be that. I see myself in 10 years' time still in SailGP. I hope. I might not be steering, I might not even be racing anymore, but I'm still involved with the Australian SailGP team.
So now you know a little bit more about Tom Slingsby, the two-time reigning and defending Australia SailGP team. They're sitting on 60 points right now. That's 9 points clear of New Zealand and 10 points clear of France in the top 3. And right now, with Mother Nature not cooperating and bringing the breeze, Tom Slingsby has plenty of time to do his favorite thing, and that's talk to us. So as we head on down to Australia, Tom, this has got to be the most difficult part of SailGP is waiting. You've done the practice, you've done the prep. Of course, yesterday you guys had a good look at the course. So what do you guys do to kill the time?
We're just here waiting patiently. We've done a few practice runs. We're not sure if the race committee are considering starting us, so we're getting ready as best we can. But yeah, it's pretty hot out here, and there's not a lot of wind, so we're just hoping we can get some racing in.
That's nice. Well, for us, Tom, we had the press conference and heard you talking about getting a bit of luck in Dubai, which I'm not entirely sure is true. Is that not just you trying to take the target off your back? How are you feeling in going into these last few events? You look pretty dominant still, pretty well ahead. It feels a bit of a deflection tactic from you.
I mean, anyone can take what they want from it, but look, in these sorts of conditions, like, there's literally no favourite. It's the way I see it. Anyone can get a little puff and win races, so it's these sorts of conditions, I don't think it's anyone's game. If it's up, the breeze is up and it's windy, for sure we're a force to be reckoned with, but in this stuff I think it's pretty even playing field.
Nice, and a bit of a tricky start to the year for you. I saw sat next to you, you've got Ed Powis in on the flight control, on the wing trim, sorry, and unfortunate accident for Carl Langford. How big a job ahead for Ed this weekend?
Yeah, we've done a couple of days training with Ed. It's unfortunate Kyle bulged a disc in his back and wasn't able to make the flight over. So yeah, Ed's been doing a great job. We're here, and yeah, we're really keen to get going and hopefully get some racing and see what we can do.
Nice, well, it certainly looks tricky out there on the water. Hopefully you're seeing some positive signs in the cloud, Tom. Thanks for your time, good luck, and we'll hopefully see you delivering some good action pretty soon.
Cheers,
and our
thanks, Stevie.
And our thanks to Tom Slingsby in Australia as they get ready. One thing you will notice on board, it is 4-person crews today because of the light wind. So they will certainly have their work cut out for them, the 4 that do make it on the boat, if we get some racing up, as we are waiting from race management to make that decision. Right now, it's a good opportunity to go back, as Tom Slingsby has had a few run-ins with several members of SailGP around on the course, as he has been tactically on spot. But one time, just a short time ago here in Season 3 in SailGP in Saint-Tropez, it was New Zealand and Australia getting together, and the small luff courtesy of one Peter Burling. Australia now starting to edge closer on the map. It's Great Britain and New Zealand top 3.
Big manoeuvre here. Ainsley must divide Australia out of this turn. Slingsby knows what's coming. How can he defend it?
This one here is the first race in Saint-Tropez, the infamous luff.
Now it's a drag race between Australia and the Kiwis.
Watch the top of the mast here. This is the danger angle. We're going to see speed records up for grabs over red there on Australia. They've got to keep clear of New Zealand. Oh, my word. Oh, he's crashed down. New Zealand. What a move from Burling.
Super windy. We're caught by a big gust. We're cavitating, and I guess my feeling was I wasn't really in control. I didn't have grip on the rudders, and we're trying to bear away, get through a bear away at high speeds. And my 2 cents was it was a bit aggressive for the first race of the series, but really that it just felt like it could have gone really wrong there.
We're just trying to safely bloody do this thing, and we've got people out there who just don't understand the risk versus reward scenario, and this happens, and yeah, it's unfortunate.
I spoke to Pete after, and he feels that he was fully in control and within his rights, which he was. But the backstory to that was Pete and I had spoken that morning about how to improve the safety of the boats, and I felt he was kind of contradicting himself. And so it was a little frustrating for me, because we were saying we've got to make these boats safer, we've got to avoid bad incidents on the water, and then I felt like he was putting his boat in a situation like that. But I understand if he was fully in control of his boat, he's within his rights to do that, and so I totally understand. We just weren't really in control at that time, so for me, I was quite frustrated.
Dylan, ridiculous.
Yeah, I lose my temper sometimes, and I cool down, and Pete and I spoke about it that night, and yeah, we've moved on.
So that was the get-together between Australia, the 2-time defending champions, and New Zealand. Ironically, they are sitting first and second right now, with the Australians on 60 points, New Zealand 9 points back on 51. As we go down the leaderboard here at Season 3, it is France that currently sits in 3rd place, 10 points back of the Aussies on 50 points. And they may be the surprise of the year, as Quentin Delapierre coming on board, taking over as the driver, and he has done a masterful job. They've had some great performances this year, Stevie, and tell you what, France is on the move, and right now they would be in the grand final if San Francisco was the next stop.
Yeah, I mean, I think Quentin and his crew this year have done a phenomenal job. They brought in Kevin Pepinay. We can see him on the left-hand side of the screen there as the trimmer on the wing sail, and I think perhaps getting an all French-speaking team together. Very good friend of Quentin, so it's got to be pretty helpful in terms of building confidence and building that time and technique on the boat together. But yeah, French got to be the standout team improving this year.
So as we continue to wait for the conditions to improve and race management to give us a green light to go racing, we now go on board the France SailGP and talk with their driver, Quentin Delapierre. More than a year at the wheel now. And Quentin, give us an idea of what you guys are doing at this moment, waiting for race management to give you the green light.
Yeah, I'm trying to just keep the good pace and fill the boat with this light wind coming, and also pretty stormy on Singapore. So yeah, lots of movement with the wind today.
Quentin, I can see you've got Kevin sat next to you there. How big an addition to your French team has Kevin been coming in as the wing trimmer? Don't be too nice.
Yeah, will not be, because he just on my behalf. No, I mean he brings so much experience as a 470 helmsman, and I think the communication improved a lot when he came, and I mean with Francois and Mathieu and all the guys on board, I think it becomes easier, and directly we feel the feeling on board is coming better, and I think it was the good choice.
And how much for you, I mean, I think over here in England we often think of the French as being really great when you're full of confidence, and I see you, since the last 3 events, you've been making the finals. Is making the final starting to become normal for the French team?
No, it will never be normal. A SailGP final is always something different and special, so just try to keep the confidence on the right spot, and that's true that actually we are in good shape, and the team feel pretty good, the boat and the racing area, but it can change anytime because the level here is pretty high.
Content, the real question that everyone wants to know is, what did you guys do to stay so fit during Christmas time? And don't lie, if you sat on the couch and watched sports all the time, please be honest.
Not much sports to see on the TV during Christmas in France, but the grinders for sure are pushing every day with the grinding machine, and for the back of the boat it's way less physical, so just need to sail as much as we can on wing foil or mud foiling, because we stopped the Olympic campaign, Manon, Kevin and I, so we try to sail a lot more on different support.
Content, we appreciate the time. We hope we get to see you sailing today. We wish you the very best of luck, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys.
Our thanks to Content Delapierre and France SailGP. As you think back to this season, Stevie, and the way they have driven through it all, they have come from way back. And one of the dark moments really came when France received the black flag, that taking place back in Bermuda.
10 seconds to go. Who's got their timing right? It looks like Spain and the USA at the bottom of the line are going to be coming in fast. No room for Content. The French at the top. The French are trying to barge in. Wow, that was punchy as the line went clear. Penalty on the French boat. They're going to need to drop behind the fleet. But it's the Spanish crew at the bottom of the line who are absolutely charging towards Mark 1. Black flag on the French boat there. That was a seriously aggressive move by Content Delapierre.
Yeah, just the umpires, the black flag.
Ah. With the black flag.
Nice.
That moment was really tricky. I saw Ben in a really good position to block us before the start. But I mean, I just want to perform on SailGP, and at this point of the season, I have to know where are the limits, and if I love before the committee end, I will never find the limits. So I decided to get into the hole, and that was too close, and also an aggressive move, a little bit too much. I mean, for sure too much, too aggressive, and can be also dangerous for Ben and his crew. I apologize after the moves, but on the other side, I was also not happy, it's not the good word, but I was okay because after this move, I know the limits and I know where they are. And that was at the beginning of the season, so it was a huge loss for our overall ranking in Bermuda.
So from a black flag in Bermuda to now sitting in a top 3 position, France is certainly on the move. Speaking of on the move, we are hearing that racing can take place in as little as 5 minutes, so we'll step aside. We'll be back with much more from the Singapore Sail Grand Prix.
Messing me now to the times. We'll get left on red. got so close.
Shit, they're insane.
Okay, that's us. I've seen a lot this one now.
Oh, that's scary. I have PTSD from this. I'm scared this is gonna happen to us someday.
I can't comment on this one.
Yeah, wow. That was a big one.
You can see that we have our usual behavior to scream and try to say something to the other boat, but it's not possible.
I can only imagine how bad Geordie felt in that moment, thinking he might have knocked out USA from the $1 million race, but fortunately they were able to race.
Oh, I know this one.
Oh my.
Oh. It's funny hearing Chris's voice, because I'm so used to it now. Oh, I think that's one of the worst ones.
Yeah, our old mate Nathan, we didn't see Jimmy. That was the first thing I told him when he was driving our boat, was like, just look for starboards, don't crash.
Yeah, we had a pretty good view of this one actually, and you never like to see boats come together.
Oh my God, they had to lift the boat off?
He got sort of dares in the headlight. He didn't know whether to tack, dark, and then that took up precious time and then left him really with an option that he just reacted too late, unfortunately.
Go, go, go.
Back in Singapore for the inaugural running of the Singapore Sail Grand Prix. This is event number 8, season number 3. Alongside Lisa Darman and Emily Nagel and Stevie Morrison, I'm Todd Harris. I want to bring you up to speed as we've got a course hold right now as we wait for Mother Nature to fill in with some breeze. Of course, we're powered by nature, and so Mother Nature has to do her part. Everyone's ready to go racing, but we thought we'd bring you up to speed on where we sit right now at this point in the season. Australia, the 2-time reigning defending champions, 9 points clear of New Zealand in second. France sits in third. Great improvement over the last 3 or 4 events on 50 points. And it's Great Britain, remember, they had that disastrous finish in Copenhagen, finishing in 9th place. Denmark's still in the mix, as is Canada. The United States, boy, I tell you what, they need the points here as much as anybody, as they are sitting on 39 points, well back, but they need to be in the top 3 to get in that grand final in San Francisco coming in May. And then Spain and Switzerland rounding out the 9-boat fleet. Speaking of the United States, looking to turn things around after a great performance in France. Disappointing in Dubai, and looks like they are up and moving, which is a great sign, getting 1 hole out of the water. Jimmy Spittle, of course, their driver, as they've had to make some changes on board that boat. Jimmy Spittle responsible for who goes where and when. And I think we have an opportunity now to speak with Jimmy if he's not too busy. Jimmy, give us an idea of what you're hearing out on the water and if and when you'll be racing today.
Yeah, hi Todd. It's pretty light out here. I mean, this is honestly the best breeze we've had since we got out of here. So, yeah, it's right on the lower limit, but it's getting closer to being able to complete a race, I think.
Jimmy, we got Rome Kirby back on the boat. Seems to have been quite a long time with the shoulder injury. Is that the reason that he was out for so long? How come he's back on board now?
Yeah, well, we sort of made a decision after he got injured that we just needed to build more depth in the roster and allow, for that very reason, if someone had a conflict, and we basically at that point we didn't have that option. So now we do, which is great. It's great to have him back, and yeah, well, no doubt we're already seeing rotation during teams. I mean, Kyle Langford's a classic example. Injured his back, and now the Aussies they have to rely on their bench. So I think we'll see a bit of that going through the season.
Nice, and no feeling of it being a bit of a mistake as to what's happened so far, and Rome come back after that, perhaps a little bit of disappointment in Dubai?
Yeah, I mean, with these boats, anything can happen. It's real easy to get an injury I mean, the way the travel schedules work, it's pretty easy to get sick and run down. So, yeah, you've just got to have some depth. So we're, like I said, we made an investment, and we now at least have an option.
Jimmy, let's talk about the current conditions. How much does this change the way you sail? How much does this change who you decide goes on the boat when it's down to a 4-person crew in these extremely light air conditions?
Yeah, it's typically we take off the grinders in this lighter stuff, and you know, for our setup, you know, we're running you know, Rome and then both CJs obviously on the boat. But I think each boat does it a little differently across the fleet. But for us, yeah, both the grinders have dropped off.
Thanks, Jimmy. Jimmy, can we just quickly jump and say hi to Rome? Rome, great to have you back on board with, as Jimmy said, just 4 on the boat. How hard's that going to be to step in and suddenly be back in that multitasking role that you're going to have to do now?
Excited to be back, and yeah, we've had a couple of days of practice, so it's nice to jump back in and get back with the guys.
And how's the shoulder?
Good. Ready to go.
Put me in, coach. Hey, Rome, how difficult is it coming back in these conditions? Would you prefer coming back in an obviously heavier wind, 20 knots plus?
Was that 7? No, I mean, it's, you know, we've all raced these boats enough. You know, obviously it's a bit livelier when it's breezier, but it's going more right. Happy to be here to go racing. Of course.
Rome, appreciate your time. Jimmy, thanks so much for the time and the insight as well, and we wish you guys the best of luck today. Hopefully we get to see you sailing. So that is the topic of the day, light air. The big wings are out, the crews are down to 4. SailGP has made plans for these kind of conditions because Mother Nature capricious at best. So in light air, what exactly can the F50 do?
Yeah, when the wind's super light, you know, the boat has less power and we're sailing at much lower boat speeds. So we've got a whole bunch of different configurations we can sail the boat in.
We put on big foils, which have more lifting surface, and we also put on a bigger wing, which also generates more power, which will help us accelerate faster in the lighter air and get up on the foils earlier.
Here we go, we're looking for 30 kilometres an hour to hope to get up on the foils on these boats.
We've got 50 seconds down to the top.
In the lighter airs, we take crew off the boat, and so typically on our team we take the 2 grinders off and we sail the boat with the flight controller, wing trimmer, and the female athlete goes into the grinding role. And that's just to reduce the overall weight because we're trying to generate as much power as possible, and the heavier the boat and the crew are, the harder it is to get the boat out of the water.
Any little mistake and you lose a little bit too much boat speed in a manoeuvre and you're going to drop in the water. So as a crew, we've really got to be on our game, trying to really minimise that boat speed loss so that we can keep foiling.
Singapore Sail Grand Prix looking to get off the start line, and we hope that Mother Nature can fill in the breeze. That is the forecast we're hearing. Within the next 5 minutes, we could see the start of race number 1. Scheduled for 3 races today and 3 more tomorrow, and I think at this point, the fans on the beach, the best sailors in the world out on those F50s looking to get at least 1 race in, and that would be ideal. 3 more races scheduled for tomorrow. Of course, that last race being just the top 3 point getters in the big final. For more information and more intel, we go down on the water and Lisa Darmanin.
Well, things are looking promising out here. The wind has certainly picked up and it's cooled down out here on the racetrack. I've seen the F50s sailing around with 1 hull up, and I tell you what, they actually go pretty fast even though they're not foiling. The wind shifted around to the right, which is more the direction we were expecting. It is very patchy across the racetrack, so I think there's plenty of opportunities to find more breeze and to find a quicker path around the track. It'll be very, very tough racing out here though. I think I'm expecting a right turn at gate 2 after those boats get around Mark 1, but patience is going to be key, and those strategists have a lot on today to find the best pressure. So let's go to Stevie to find out what course the sailors will be racing today.
Hitting the line fast is the key to a good start. It's a straight line to Mark 1, but for the boats behind, these light winds mean if you're not on the front row, it's going to be hard going. Mark 1 sees the first split in the fleet. They'll sail off in different directions as the teams choose to sail to the side of the course that they think will give them the quickest time to gate 2. At the gate, big choice to make. They can turn left or right. For the leading boats, they'll be looking to select the best side of the course with the most favourable wind. For the boats behind, the turbulent air makes this a much harder choice to make. Remember that sailboats don't sail fast unless they're sailing at an angle to the wind, so we will see them zigzag their way around the course looking for that fastest path. At each gate, the teams have the opportunity to split, sail off in different directions and look for tactical advantage. Mother Nature will have her say here today, so staying cool in the Singapore heat is going to be tough.
So as we heard from Lisa Darmanin down on the water, it looks like we could be racing in as little as 5 minutes as everyone gets into position. And now it's gone up to 9 minutes, so we will see what happens, but we're hoping that the wind fills in. And this has got to be difficult, Emily. You're out on the water, you're waiting, you're hearing 5 minutes, you're hearing 10 minutes. It keeps getting pushed. Of course, they obviously want good conditions to race in.
Yeah, it's a really frustrating situation to be in. You want to get racing, but you also want fair racing. So, you know, it's down to race management to make the decision. The teams just have to stay in the zone, stay focused, practice as much as they can in these conditions without getting too tired.
There you see New Zealand right now currently sitting in second place on 51 points, 9 points back of Australia. We're lucky enough to go on board now with their driver, Peter Burling. And Peter, welcome to Singapore. I know you guys were hoping for more wind. What is the forecast? What is the intel you're getting for the track today?
Well, it's definitely a pretty dynamic day. We kind of had nice breeze actually when we first arrived out here. And then a big cloud started just drizzling a little wee bit, which obviously shut it down, and now it's kind of filling back in. So hopefully it can hang out at around that 10k an hour and we can get a few races away.
And Pete, how desperate are you to get back racing? Obviously, pretty bad luck in the, or bad luck, bad judgment, whatever. You'll probably let us have a better idea, but you're probably a bit gutted from those 4 penalty points. How desperate are you to get back racing now, mate?
Go now, mate. Yeah, it's definitely not the ideal way to start a event, but you know, in saying that, you've got to push these practice days, and you know, it's something that you don't want to ever have happen, but you know, we've had it happen now, and we've just got to make the most of it over these next couple of days. And I'm definitely feeling like quite nice breeze. You know, we're just seeing 12s on the boat now, so hopefully the race committee can get a nice square course set up and we can get underway.
And how important is the start going to be, Pete? Is that going to be the race?
Yeah, I think it'll be pretty hard to pass once you get around the bottom marks, but you know, it'll be that first run as well is pretty critical. So not just the start, but making sure you get to the bottom marks. I think it'll be a big part of the race.
Pete, you have one of the great maneuvers we've seen from you in multiple cases where you go to the back of the start box and you come in, obviously with not much wind there. You can't come streaming into the line like you have in the past, so you change your strategy and try something else. As Stevie said, it's all about the start.
We've definitely got different strategies for different conditions, like everyone, and yeah, we feel like we're pretty comfortable in the slide stuff. You know, they're doing a lot of work. Obviously, it's what everyone expected in Singapore statistically, so looking forward to getting underway.
Pete, appreciate your time. Wish you the best of luck.
Bye.
So that is Peter Burling in New Zealand, sitting on 51 points, currently sitting second overall. And Stevie, if you're a New Zealand fan, you've got to feel pretty good knowing that coming up is Australia and then, of course, home waters in New Zealand for the next event after that.
Yeah, I think they've been really sailing so strongly. It's silly mistakes, to be perfectly honest, is what's hurt them. They lost 4 points and missed the final in Dubai. They've lost 4 points for a silly little collision here. And as Pete said, it's not what you want to happen. And I think really, if they can tidy that up, this is the team that can challenge Australia, but they've got to make sure these silly things don't hamstring them. They don't end up missing that final because of them.
All right. New Zealand getting themselves into position, as are the rest of the teams. It looks like we are going racing in under 6 minutes. New Zealand loaded with all kinds of talent. Can they turn it on here in Singapore today? We're about to find out. The Singapore Sail Grand Prix, race number 1 coming up. We're just moments away.
Copenhagen. Yeah, British running aground.
Yeah, Copenhagen. Ooh. Oh.
Oh, jeepers. Ooh. Ouch. That's definitely something you don't want to do, hitting a rock.
It's a pretty shocking moment for the team because it knocked us out of the competition.
Yeah, it was some pretty big damage, so yeah, I think it was a good waking up call for the whole fleet to study our charts.
Oh, the foil is just completely shredded.
Big lefty, okay, here we go. Little Bill. No, I don't know where to go yet. Come on.
That's probably my scariest moment in sailing.
I think this is the definition of sandwich.
Oh my God, yeah.
I'd say we're the meat in the sandwich.
Oh God, Kiwis.
Yeah, you can hear it like, I mean, all the team was screaming.
Oh, I hope that never happens to me. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, this is a dangerous situation.
Oh, jeepers. Oh, that's good action.
I decided to crash Pete and not Ben, because the crash with Ben can be a disaster.
Well, the word from race management is we are just over 3 minutes away from racing race number 1 here at the Singapore Sail Grand Prix. And we hope to see that race take place under very light conditions. But remember, they have the big boards out. They have 4-person crews, so we should see some racing taking place. Before we get to that, we want to give you an idea of where we stand right now after 7 events. And as you take a look at this graphic, you can get a really good idea of where teams have excelled and where they've failed. We'll start with Australia. They are the 2-time reigning and defending champions, and they sit in first place on 60 points. And you look at the consistency, the only blip they really have is Copenhagen and Saint-Tropez when they got a 4th and a 5th, still getting to the final in Cadiz, and of course that amazing come-from-behind win in Dubai. But Stevie, another team you want to look at, possibly France.
Yeah, I think the French is worth looking at. We can see them sitting in 3rd place at the moment, and if I was making a scorecard, if I couldn't have the Australian one, I think I'd like it if I was on board that French boat. Look at that, 8th. Early on in the season, but the last 4 events, 2nd, 4th, 1st, 2nd, they're starting to find that consistency and that skill level that's moving them up there. They're a force to be reckoned with now.
And Emily, for the USA, kind of a similar story. Started off poorly, but they've started to come on as of late in the last 3 events.
Exactly. My eyes get drawn down to that scorecard. The first 3 events, they really did struggle to get up and get going. They did have a new flight controller on board, which we know, but they have improved with each event. So a 1st and a 2nd there towards the end of the season. Not the best event in Dubai, but with bringing Rome back, let's see if they can do it here.
Looking good for a race here at the Singapore Sail Grand Prix. It'll be race number 1 as we come up on 90 seconds to go.
I think what's really kind of crucial now for everyone to think about.
The course for race 1 is 4 legs. The axis is 180.
Okay. 4 legs. Pretty short race then, Todd. 4 legs, 4 crew on board. And we can see here 90 seconds, they're already lined up. It's such light winds. Being in position early is the key. And Australia, catch my eye, they're out the back already.
So all dressed up and somewhere to go now, under a minute until the start of race number 1 in the inaugural running of the Singapore Sail Grand Prix. It'll be light breezes, as Lisa Darmanin has reported. But Stevie, as we've gone around the fleet, everyone's feeling pretty optimistic that it's starting to fill in.
Yeah, I mean, there's got clearly a little bit of breeze, but it's very much a little bit of breeze, and those 29-metre wings are massive. There's skyscrapers in the background. There's skyscrapers on our F50s in the foreground. They're going to be blocking the breeze. USA, Great Britain, good positioning at the moment. New New Zealand in the middle of the line. Are they going to be able to find some space? I think Australia might have left it too late, but a gap could open. How's your timing up here, Jimmy? Spithill, Spain could find themselves shut out at the top of the line, bottom of our screen right now, as Great Britain and the United States have control of the start at the moment. Just 10 seconds to go. We're watching for the line to turn white. It's a slow speed walk to the start line, but still the timing will need to be inch perfect. USA look a touch early to my eye. Oh, they're over early on the US. New Zealand out of the middle of the line look good.
This is the umpires. OCS penalty USA. Over the line early.
USA need to drop behind the whole fleet at Mark 1. Disaster for Jimmy and his crew. It was a millimetres away from being perfect. But New Zealand, they've got to hull up. They turn the boat towards Mark 1. They're going to have a fast angle in, but can they roll over the top of Denmark and France before that Mark 1?
Look at this as you look down the line because they come to mark number 1. The Americans will miss out, as Stevie said, just by millimeters. They had it almost spot on. And there's the position. Stevie, as they come to mark number 1 in this light breeze, whose position do you like the best?
Well, it's top of the mast is where I'm drawn. Those speeds are going to be crucial. And New Zealand, they have a faster position. But on the inside, Australia will own the rights at the mark. So can Peter Burling sail that New Zealand boat fast enough? He's a little bit quicker, 26 kilometres an hour. If he gets across Denmark, he does. New Zealand should lead at Mark 1. He said it's crucial to lead at Mark 1, but now it's can he stay in space? And for New Zealand fans, wow, that's going to be a big sigh of release as Kiwis lead at Mark 1. They're going to be followed by Tom Slingsby's Australia, new wig trimmer Ed Powys. Well, not a bad start for him.
Remember, it's just 4 legs. It has been shortened because of the wind conditions. And Emily, if you're New Zealand, you could not have had a better start. Remember, they're trying to make up those 4 points they've already lost from the practice incident collision with the USA.
Exactly. Pressure is on for the Kiwis today. It isn't the most high-speed racing, but every knot or kilometre of narrow speed counts today. So 23 kilometres an hour of speed downwind, not the fastest we've seen, but all the teams very similar, tight racing.
And the USA now, their penalty has been relinquished. They move into last place. So now, Stevie, it is a lot of work for Jimmy Spithill and the Americans. They were inches away from hitting it dead on.
Todd, I think what we've got to be ready for here is the fact that there's possibly not going to be many races. We see there's not a lot of wind. There could be only a few races, so these points count more than ever. We used to see in perhaps 6 races, but it's all on. And now we can see Great Britain. They have the right of way over Canada. Canada needs to be very careful here as New Zealand are lined up for gate 2. And Australia, they're going to be happy with where they sit now. Points in all of these races are crucial as Ben Ainslie manoeuvres very close here with Canada. I'm surprised if there's not going to be a protest. Right of way was with Great Britain, but it's about to go back to Canada. Canada can turn left if they want.
And at gate number 2, the slow march continues with the Kiwis getting their first. Australia, the overall leaders in Season 3, sitting in second. Denmark in a great position as well.
Looks like Lisa Darmanin had a magic ball out. She was talking about a right turn at gate 2. New Zealand lead and turn right. And they're now listening to Pete Burling. Voice of Blair Toot there. Let the wing flow. They're just desperately trying to encourage the breeze over those wings.
Ooh, this is awfully close.
Right of ways with Denmark, Australia. Oh, he's wiggling hard to slow the boat down. It's rare that you'd want to slow down, but Slingsby had to then.
Denmark cuts right in front of Australia. They have the right of way, and Tom Slingsby looking to slow that boat down, as Stevie said, from a very slow percentage. Now, the United States looked like they had the best position. Stevie, you talked about it. They controlled the start. They came over just by inches, and Craig Mitchell had to give them the penalty.
Yeah, they're over the line. It's a pretty blank rule. If you cross the line before the gun, you're done.
No foiling yet, as everyone can clearly see, 0% fly time. But the Kiwis do have the highest average speed at 17 kilometres an hour average. Let's see if they can hold that, and if Danish can pick their speed up and catch up.
And look how much the wind has died out. Denmark's able to pull away. Australia still in that gate 2 circle trying to get out. Remember, this is just a 4-leg race. Race number 1 postponed nearly 50 minutes from when it was supposed to go because the wind direction changed so drastically. But as Lisa Darmanin reported, starting to fill in, and now Australia up. It looks like they're going to pull that hole out of the water.
Here we go, tacking here.
So it's slow action on board the British boat. They were following Canada, and if you're sat behind another F50 with those big 29-metre wings, the amount of wind you're feeling is so much left. The effect of the blocked winds is huge with these big wings in this light wind. Pretty calm on board the US boat at the moment, but they need to make something happen really, really quickly, because New Zealand, look at that, already sailing parallel to that yellow line. They're aiming at gate 3. Could be a good race here for the Kiwis. They're out in front, hull up out of the water. They lift that one hull out of the water to try and minimise the drag, keep these F50s going as quickly as possible, and they're 100 metres out in head, and that's going to be music to Pete Burling's ears.
The numbers to look for here are those speeds on the top of the masthead. When they're showing 15 to 25 kilometers an hour, that means they can get into this H1 mode that we currently see the Kiwis and the Australians doing. Boats further in the back, 2 hulls in the water, slower speed, twice the drag. Right now we're seeing 9 kilometers an hour of breeze on the water, so it's still very, very light. But teams are producing 25 kilometers an hour of breeze, which just shows how much power these huge wings are generating.
The F50s are so majestic as the wind is right around 10 kilometers an hour. Stevie, you always told me they can sail double the wind speed, so that is holding true right now as the Kiwis closing in on 20 kilometers an hour. Australia at 17, and the Americans moving up. They were in 9th place up to 7th, 6th momentarily as they battle for that spot with Switzerland.
Yeah, it'll be very, very tight in the pack. I think for Denmark, Australia, and even more so New Zealand now, they're going to be probably feeling, well, if you can feel relaxed, quite confident. They've just got a left turn to go, finish line right in the foreground there, and they should be pretty comfy. But in the pack, meters are going to be crucial. There, Liv Mackay on the handles, working hard. Everyone needs to multitask today. You can't just be a strategist. You're a grinder, strategist, you're a helm, driver, flight controller, wing trimmer, you're doing it all.
4 is the magic number today. 4 legs, 4-person crews. This is the first race. We are scheduled for at least one more, and then hopefully the conditions get better for tomorrow on Sunday.
Can you put some rake on?
Australia and the Danish coming together here towards that final mark. Crucial moment, because the Danish, if they can get that hull up and flying, will have a chance of staying ahead of Australia. If they stay 2 hulls in the water, which we're seeing now, it looks like the Aussies are going to have it.
A slow pace, but it couldn't be better for the Kiwis. New Zealand wins the first race at the Singapore Sail Grand Prix.
Oh, and on the inside, it's Denmark. They're going to try and squeeze out. Can the Australians sneak round the outside? Looks like Slingsby's fast enough. He should be good from here. Too little too late from Sehested as Phil Robertson, he's just ahead there of the great British boat. It's tight in the pack, but Slingsby, defending champion, God, he's going to be feeling pretty happy.
Average speed there, neck and neck for the Aussies and the Danish, but right now the Aussies 10 kilometers an hour faster, and that will get them second place.
And there you go, pretty good pat on the back for Ed Powers there from Tom Slingsby. Nice job, guys, and well, if you come in to control that big wing sail, take second place on board Australia. Big pressure on Ed Powers, but Australia are going to be happy with that one.
Nice finish for Denmark. Nikolai Sehested, they'll take those points. And now the battle continues. Remember, top 3 will go into the final race on Sunday. It is New Zealand, Australia, Denmark home safely. It looks like Canada and Phil Robertson are going to hold on for that 4th finish just ahead of Great Britain and Ben Ainsley.
It's tight in the pack. Look how little wind is there when you're a little bit further back. Spanish boat, they're struggling to get on one hull. And all those points, the USA, France and Spain, in this final manoeuvre into the finish there. 5th place for Great Britain. It's not great, but I suspect you're trying to get out. It's damage limitation for a lot of these top crews out there today on the water. And well, the French, they've snuck around in the end, got the boat going. Can Jimmy Spithill rescue 1 point? Looks like he's going to slingshot around Spain. Every point counts is what my coach always used to tell me, and Jimmy's going to know that better than anyone. So that 1 point, how valuable will that be at the end of the weekend? And how painful is it going to be for Jordi Jamar?
Switzerland coming through in 6th with Seb Schneider. Nathan Outridge on board, and look at the speed the Americans. Boy, if they had another 100 yards, they might be able to get France. They will run out as France will hold on for 7th place. The Americans will have to settle for 8th and 9th. The wooden spoon goes the way of Spain. Well, it wasn't the fastest, most dynamic race, but Emily, Stevie, there were certainly tactics involved, and you've got to feel sorry for USA SailGP. They were inches away from nailing the start, and that would have made all the difference.
Yeah, I don't know if you can say sorry for them, Todd. They know where the line is, and they were a little bit too early, but it just shows the fine margins, because I thought Jimmy had judged it perfectly, and yeah, a few seconds early on the trigger pull, and that's how costly it is, but that's sport, isn't it? Margins count.
All right, let's go back and have a look via the telestrator. Emily, take us through some of the action we saw in a very slow, methodical race, but it is great to be racing here in Singapore.
Well, we're throwing back here to that start we were just talking about. So the USA really did go from hero to zero in a matter of seconds. We see them setting up here, close to the line, not a lot of speed, but they look to be in a prime position to get to Mark 1 first. Unfortunately, while avoiding the Canadians staying high, they inched just a bit too close to the line, and at the gun, 1.4 meters over the line. But that left the Kiwis with a bit of space, a little bit more speed, and saw them get to Mark 1 first and all the way around.
Well, key moment in the race. Great moment for New Zealand there, but for aboard Australia, it was just managing to keep that speed high, keep the hull flying. You can see the right-hand side boat up in the air. Ed Powis, wing trimmer on board here, and the Australians, every point counts. And at the last minute, they slingshot round, and they managed to roll over Nikolai Sehested's Danish crew, turned a third into a second, and well, that's just what Tom Slingsby does. Makes it happen when he needs to.
And as you pointed out, every point extremely valuable as you get ready for Sunday. Only the top 3 teams will be racing in the final race if Mother Nature cooperates on Sunday. So let's take a look at the final results. We waited some 45 minutes, but we did finally get a race in here as the Singapore Sail Grand Prix is off and running. Race number 1 goes the way of the Kiwis. They needed it most. Remember, they came into this race 4 points down, being assessed that penalty by Chief Umpire Craig Mitchell because of contact with the Americans during practice. Australia finishes in 2nd, then it's Denmark and Canada. Great Britain rounding out the top 5. Switzerland, France, United States salvages at 1 point, finishing in 8th, just ahead of Spain. Just over a meter spelled the difference for the Americans as they were spot on, but just over the line a little bit too early. Had to go to the back of the pack and only recovered 1 position. So we're hoping to get a second race, and right now the course will be reset to optimize the wind. And we'll give you a chance now to learn a little bit more about SailGP and the ladders that we use out on the water. Well, those are the ladder lines as SailGP technology has made it easier for fans of the sport as well as newcomers to enjoy the on-air presentation. Those ladder lines help you see exactly where the boats are on the water. So, Steve, the debrief makes it a little easier when you win the race, even though it wasn't very dynamic. It was very strategic. And I tell you what, Peter Burley and the Kiwis were clean, and that's what you said they had to do. Stop making the unforced errors.
Yeah, I mean, they've got to deliver under pressure. I mean, I suppose Pete will now be looking at this. There's 10 points for the win, but that's effectively going to get them up to 6 points now with that -4 that they had at the start of things. So they're already really in the race for the final podium race here in Singapore. That's what they needed to do. They're probably going to need to do that again. But yeah, the top guys, it's a tricky race. It's a short race. It'd be easy to say it's lucky, but can't stop noticing the best guys end up at the top. And we're looking here at the Australian boat, Tash Bryant there in the background, and here's the Aussies. This is when they were foiling in some practice, slightly different day, but Slingsby delivered. He managed to pull a performance out of things, even with Ed Powers coming in as wing. But that Australian boat, well, they seem to be able to deliver, and they deliver under a lot of pressure.
Well, one race down, and it looks like we have one more to go as the fans continue to fill in. And race 2 is just moments away, which gives us a brief moment to concentrate on the often unsung heroes in the sailing teams, the flight controllers. We always see them hunched down in their cockpits and talk about them flying the boats, but just exactly how do they do that? How does someone like Jason Waterhouse make it all work for his squad and carry them to victory?
This is the dagger board. This is what I'm responsible for controlling. And what you can see is this is the leading edge that penetrates the water first. And a bit like an airplane wing, you know, it's got a nice curve at the front to help the water attach. And then it flows over the board on both sides and then exits here. That generates lift when the dagger board is down. Moves like this to create lift, like if we're taking off on a runway on a plane. You know, when the nose comes up, you're creating angle of attack and lift with the water. And then as we increase speed, you don't need it, and we level out. And that's just me controlling that through the flight controller. When you're going in a straight line, controlling one is somewhat manageable, but then when you go for a maneuver and you drop the other one, and you have two in the water at the same time, they oppose each other a lot, so that's the hard part of the job. There's a lot of load on this. When you're doing 50 knots, you get so much load that you actually get cavitation. It's flight controller's worst enemy, besides waves maybe. As long as this part of the board stays under the water, we'll be fine. The problem we have is in the waves, if this at all gets any air bubbles under the leading edge, it's game over because we'll just drop out of the sky.
Well, the crowds continue to fill in on a beautiful Saturday afternoon in Singapore as SailGP comes to Southeast Asia for the very first time. One race complete, very light wind conditions. As Lisa Darman reported, the wind filled in at the last moment and we were able to get one race away. The winners, New Zealand. As they walk away, they were already docked 4 points, so that is great news for them and their fans. We go on board now with Peter Burling. Pete, usually you guys come screaming from the back of the start box to the start line, and this time a different strategy. What were you seeing from the rest of the fleet that gave you the idea to go where you went?
Yeah, well, obviously the favourite point in the line was in the middle there, and I think the guys and girls did a great job of getting a little bit more gauge off the Swiss to lord of us, so we could actually get the whole pot first, and I think there was a difference to leading at Mark 1 and just getting over the top of D-Mark in Australia.
So, looking the same again for this next race, Pete. Start was obviously pretty good. You seem to be pretty fast across to Mark 1. How big a job has Blair Toot got on board with that 29-metre wing and these light airs?
Okay. Yeah, well, it's nice when you can actually get to the windward side of the boat. So it's nice here to get a whole fly and actually get a bit of tiff in and full riding moment down that first reach through. Obviously haven't had much of that today, and hopefully it hangs around for this one last race.
Pete, a completely different dynamic with the big wings on board and you have a 4-person crew. How much does that change the way you sail the boat, or are you just basically taking what Mother Nature gives you?
Well, it changes a lot the way we sail the boat when it's foiling. Right now we're obviously not foiling and sailing these things a little bit more conventionally, so we've actually got a lot more time than we normally would, and great to be able to get the conversation going at the normal level with the group we've got on board.
Minutes to start.
All right.
Thanks, Pete. Thanks for your time. Good luck. Look forward to the next race.
Peter Burling is sharing some moments with us and some insight after winning the first race. Right now we send it back down as we go under 4 minutes to go before the start of race number 2 and get some intel on the water with Lisa Darmanin.
Well, Todd, I don't think we're going to see any foiling, but the wind is hanging in here. It has shifted a little bit, which means that the race course has had to be moved, but that should allow for more overtaking opportunities. I still think that right turn at gate number 2 will be favoured. It is difficult for that race committee that has to reconfigure the course, but I know there's some developments going on in the background to try and make sure in the future we can have quick course changes. So stand by for that. As we're going to see again, it will be all in the start, and I think for these teams, it's really critical to get around gate mark number 1 first, because then you just have all the luxury of choosing your path. It is tough out here. There's not a lot of wind, and if you can get that hull in the air, you're definitely going to sail away from the other teams.
All right, thank you very much, Lisa. We're waiting word from Melanie Roberts, the race manager, to tell us exactly what they expect here on race number 2.
The course for race 2 is 4 legs. The axis is 165. Wind is approximately 10 kilometers per hour.
So that's good news, Stevie. I mean, at least it's up to 10. We're talking possibly sailing 20.
Well, it's good news for the crews. It's good news just we're racing out here in Singapore. It's spectacular scenes and obviously a great start for the Kiwis. I think thing for everyone to bear in mind, and Lisa talks, why are we so keen to be ahead at Mark 1? And that's because these massive wing sails, well, they disturb the wind. They slow the wind down. Now, they probably slow the wind down rough figures by about 3.5 kilometers an hour. Now, if there's 20 kilometers an hour, you know, that's maybe not as big a difference as you're going to get when there's only 10. They're going to be sailing around, if you're in the pack, in nearly 30% less wind than the leaders. So it's absolutely crucial to get out in front. And 1 minute 50 to go. We can see the pre-race jostling has already begun. USA and New Zealand in a similar position. It's very tight in the pack and finding space is key. New Zealand there, up to 4th overall already, even with that -4 point penalty. Ominously, Tom Slingsby's Australia already leading here in Singapore.
And Emily, quickly, if you're the Americans, do you go aggressive again, knowing that you finished that last race in 8th place and you need the points?
Definitely. It's a battle out there to get the speed up and get some points on the board. So 10 kilometers an hour of wind, that means teams should be doing around 15 to 18 kilometers an hour of boat speed going upwind. So we should be seeing that H1 mode again. It's going to be critical to get that hull out the water, decrease drag, and build the speed.
Coming down hard here.
1 minute to go. We'll see how everyone responds. Of course, New Zealand being docked those 4 points. As Stevie pointed out, they're up to 4th place on the overall ladder now. So huge for them getting that first win. And now the Americans lurking like they were in race number 1. Stevie, can they control the line again? This time, hopefully not hit the line before it goes 0-0.
Well, he is controlling, but he's early back again with 40 seconds to go. Bottom of the screen here, this close end, New Zealand need to watch out they're not shut out. Towards the top of our screen where the Danish are, that's the favoured position to start. We saw the pole position dot come up. New Zealand, 25 seconds to go. He's got to be careful he doesn't get shut out at the end of the line here by Canada, or that could spell disaster. Middle of the line, Switzerland and Great Britain. They're well positioned at the moment, but it's all about timing now. New Zealand shut the door on Canada, but they're going to be close to the line now. We're watching for the line to turn white. It's all about your timing. Spain, Australia, try and dive through late. Here we go. What a start by Tom Slingsby on board Australia. He found a gap. He's dived through at pace. He's going to have the most speed as we head towards Mark 1, and it's going to be a sprint between Australia and Spain from here.
So Tom Slingsby in Australia gets a look at the battle going on between Jimmy Spithill and Peter Burling, trying to control that line, and a spot opened up.
Penalty New Zealand, relative Canada, wind not keeping clear.
Wow, and I thought the penalty was going to go the way of Switzerland being over the line early. Not the case, so New Zealand takes the penalty. And look at this.
Australia are foiling here, Todd. They've managed to get the boat up in the air. Watch them go on board that Australian boat now. The speed is coming up. Gone green on the USA. They're over 30 kilometers an hour, and we're going to see the US boat up and foiling. It's going to be tight now, but if you're foiling, you're fast. Expect the ruse to shoot off downwind here. Great news for Tom Slingsby and the pack. It's going to be tight now.
Pressure is on for the Spanish here to get up on the foils. The boats behind them are coming in with speed. They've got to keep moving. USA up on the foils, moving through the fleet.
It's going to be hard to stay on the foils in the manoeuvre, and for New Zealand, well, disaster. That penalty with Canada means they're going to struggle to get out of the back of the pack. That could spell the end of their event here in Singapore. That mistake's crucial. We see there Australia fall off the foils, but it's Jimmy Spithill trying to pull a bit of a magic trick, get himself back into this event here. Tom Slingsby, though, wow, talk about delivering under pressure. Ed Powis on the wing, Jason Waterhouse, flight controller. They've really done some job of getting himself in the race here.
So Australia with a fantastic start lead. Spain in second, France in third, and the USA up to 4th. No one needs points more than the Americans right now as they try to recover from a terrible first race where they finished in 8th place. And already at gate number 2, it's the Australians, the two-time reigning and defending champions, out in front.
Good pressure this way, probably. Yeah, we might try to pop past
Well, that's the voice of Ed Power saying there's pressure this way. So the Australians are happy with where they're going, but top of screen, Great Britain, he's maybe seen a different picture as the US and Great Britain are potentially going to turn left here. On the inside, it's Great Britain, they have the right of way, but the US will be round the outside as Jordi Jamar, he turns right, splits away from the fleet, and he's going to follow Tom Slingsby. And from what we've seen so far today, following Tom Slingsby's not a bad move.
That manoeuvre hit GBR really hard. They're down below 10 kilometers now of boat speed in the middle of it, and they've had to do another maneuver again to make that left turn. Today is all about minimizing maneuvers because 2 hulls in the water is slow. We can see it here. They're drifting. It's painful. They want to get that hull out of the water as soon as possible, and that means turning as little as possible.
Stark contrast to what we saw from Australia, the Americans, and Spain as they were able to foil. And from what Lisa Darmanin was seeing and hearing down on the water, Steve, it didn't look like anyone was going to foil today. The best we could hope for is the H1.
Absolutely, but New Zealand have got themselves foiling now. If they can keep the boat on the foils and slingshot round the outside of everyone here, perhaps Burling and crew can salvage some mighty valuable points. Here they go. New Zealand fans need to pray.
Thanks, go, let's rolling into attack.
How about that, from 9th to 6th?
Oh, and he's churned to use the JK that we talked about before the start. They slingshot round the outside. He's rolled straight into a turn there, and he's got the hull up out of the water already. Burling on a mission, trying to charge back through the fleet, and he could easily be back into the top 3 here with this manoeuvre by Burling. It's all about speed now.
As we said before, it was all about conserving that momentum, using the downwind speed to turn you around the mark, keep the hull out of the water as much as possible.
The Americans now sitting in second, just 12 meters behind Australia, who leads. Spain sits in third, 132 back. Great Britain, New Zealand, the big winners. They were in 9th, now in 5th.
New Zealand, they're just 190 metres off the lead. They're the big movers in this race, and for them, they're going to be looking at Great Britain. Can they manage to close that down? And what it's going to come down to is how many times they need to turn the boat up here.
Remember, it's a short race, just 4 legs. They are on leg 3 of 4, the second and possibly final race of the day.
I think we're not far off it here. Quite good, pressure when we turn.
All talking now about can they make the gate. Slingsby thinks they can make it. This could be the last big turn for them. We're back on board the States.
Yeah, a little fast ride in case the lift's up here.
Oh, it looks like the Americans have done a nice job of finding space.
Be in good shape. And we can actually good puff here. And
Rome Kirby talking with Tom Slingsby, CJ Perez on there, Paul Campbell James.
Put a little speed in the back here. Car off at popping speed here, Tom. Copy. Just hold on the trims.
30 kilometres an hour, popping speed. That means they think he's fast enough to get up on the foils. 30 kilometres an hour, and look at this. Bit of a test of strength here between the United States and Australia. And boy, do the United States need it. As we see the leaderboard showing New Zealand in 4th, that would be some comeback if they could salvage a 4th from this.
We're slow through the water here. There's probably going a little bit flatter and faster.
Slingsby, not happy.
How much disturbed there, Stevie, is Australia getting off the US?
Well, he wasn't in it a minute ago. I don't think he's in it.
Yep, no one's threatening.
There we go. So US think they can make it in 1, Australia can't.
Previously, we just heard the Australian team saying they felt slow through the water, and there it is, USA averaging 2 kilometers an hour, more of boat speed, both at around 15% fly time for this leg. But the US do have that little edge on the boat speed.
Here we go, it's tight at the top. It's 2 tight battles. US, they look like they're going to be round now. Great Britain, they have the right of way here. He's going to try and trap the Kiwis off the course. New Zealand's getting so slow. He had to wait for Great Britain there. It's going to be Great Britain controlling 3rd. Ainsley not one to give an inch. Now, here come the United States. What a comeback for Jimmy Spithill and Rome Kirby. He's popped that boat up on the foils.
Race number 2 goes the way of the Americans. Kid comeback, Jimmy Spithill, Rome Kirby, Paul Campbell James, and CJ Perez get it done in the 2nd race in Singapore.
Needed that. And here we go, Australia, they're round now on the inside of the yellow circle here. Great Britain, they'll be able to turn. New Zealand will have the right of way versus Canada, but can they accelerate the boat fast enough? Trying to build speed there on board New Zealand. Canada will be looking to roll round the outside. It's going to be a battle of acceleration. New Zealand need all the points they can get. As Tom Slingsby doing the job again. Look how slow the New Zealand boat is. Canada, can they roll round the outside here? It's going to be hard for Burling to accelerate. Oh, this could be...
Look at this. Look at this.
So crucial, these points. New Zealand have to stay ahead of Denmark. They just got so slow a moment ago.
And they're pushing them wide.
They're pushing wide. Denmark must keep clear. The right of ways with New Zealand right until the end. They've got to give room for the Danish boat to finish. But Burling looks like he's just done enough to hang on here for a 5th place finish. Great comeback by the New Zealand boat. But oh, so close to 3rd at one point in that race.
So Denmark will grab 6th. Spain will hold on to 7th. And 8th will go the way of the Swiss. The big question is what happened to France?
Really struggling out there at the moment, Todd. They've had a tough day on board the French boat. They look so good for the last few events this season, but yeah, just struggling to get their F50 going fast enough, struggling to get off the start line ultimately. It's not going to be a particularly tricky fix for the French overnight, but yeah, wow, what a frustrating day for them.
France announcing this week 2 deals, one with global financial services provider ICM.com and the other with French hotel group Accor's lifestyle loyalty program. So France on a week when they get some good news on the sponsorship front. Not a great start to the Singapore Sail Grand Prix as the French, currently sitting 3rd overall, get a 7th and a 9th to start their campaign. For the Americans, they go from near dead last, 8th in race number 1 to winning race number 2. And Stevie, in light wind, the form looked fantastic for the Americans.
Well, I mean, we said Jimmy was so close to a perfect start in race 1, just missed it. Great start, but it was all about how good a job they did of getting on the foils quite soon on that leg to Mark 1. Perhaps no coincidence, Rome Kirby's back and they did a nice job.
So we're looking a bit further in the pre-start here. The American team saw that they were early, so start killing time. This is when they start to do a bit of a wiggle, sail up towards the top of the line, to try and find their own bit of space. So slowing down, moving around, and that opens up a gap for the Australian team. We see them accelerate through this gap between the US and GBR team, build speed and hit the line at 20 kilometers an hour with one hull up and quickly up onto the foils.
Well, yeah, and the key moment was a big moment for the New Zealand boat. They slingshot around the outside. They got on the foils on that downwind leg, and despite a penalty where they were last at Mark 1, somehow, look at that move there. That's threading the needle from Pete Burling and his crew, and they slung it straight into the JK that Emily explained so well before the start, and they got right back in the race. We can see it got very tight at the top. They nearly managed to get back to 4th. They dropped to 5th in the end. And well, very, very good comeback by New Zealand. We've seen how hard that is. How vital is that going to be tomorrow?
Well, let's take a look at the event leaderboard. 2 races complete here on day number 1 of the Singapore Sail Grand Prix. It's Australia, 18 points, 4 points clear of Great Britain and Ben Ainslie, tied with Canada for that 2nd position. And then look at the United States, just on the outside looking in. They are even with Denmark's Nikolai Sested. New Zealand, despite the 4 points, they moved all the way up to 6th place. Good news for them, but a terrible 2nd race as they win the 1st race. Then it's Switzerland, Spain, and France. So all eyes now turn to day number 2 of the Singapore Sail Grand Prix. We're now lucky to go down on the water and speak with the driver of USA SailGP, Jimmy Spithill. Jimmy, wow, what a turn of events. You guys go from an 8th and to a 1st. What was the difference other than that 1.5 meters being early on race number 1 in race 2? We'll go to Tom Slingsby now. My apologies. Tom Slingsby with Australia. Tom, you guys go into day number 2 in 1st place. It's a familiar territory for you. How about that 2nd race? And were you thinking about trying to overtake the Americans and push the issue, or just salvage the points on 2?
If I'm honest, for sure I was thinking about overtaking. We decided to go for the tack on the inside and see if there was a chance we could get on the inside of them, but Unfortunately, they got a good shift out there, a bit more pressure, and we blew a bit of a big lead, but still, we're very happy with today.
Tom, those starts looked, to say the least, a bit stressful. How was the heart rate in the last minute coming into those starts?
Very stressful for us too, even though we're not moving fast. In the first race, we did our final attack with 40 seconds to kill and raced the whole way to the line and only got there with a half a second late. And then the second one, we were late again, and I think we had a minute to kill, but we only just got there on the line as well. So we were very lucky, I think, with some of those starts, but fortunately it paid off for us.
Tom, thanks for the time. Congratulations. We will see you tomorrow. So the Australians, the two-time reigning defending champions, they go into Sunday on top of the leaderboard. And now everyone wants to know, what will the weather be like for that? We check in with Lisa Darmanin.
Well, I've got good news because the weather will be better tomorrow. Well, that's what the forecast is saying anyway. We're expecting the peak of today to be the trough of tomorrow, as quoted by the technical director, Brad Marsh. So things are looking up. We're seeing the boats falling around now, and we're hoping and thinking that we'll see them falling around tomorrow. So more tricky conditions though. It will be changeable. They will have to be adaptable. It's going to be a really interesting day of racing, and I think, as we saw today, absolutely anything can happen.
Yeah, big day for the French. They've got to get off the bottom. New Zealand, nice comeback, chipping away, but probably the happiest people, well, almost definitely Tom Slingsby, but Great Britain's Ben Ainsley. Could be moving day for him in the season. If he can hang on to second, make another final, it'll be big news for Ainsley and the British.
We've only had 2 races, so I wouldn't write anybody out of the final yet tomorrow. Even, you know, the Kiwis, they could win a race tomorrow, they could be in that final still.
So Tom Slingsby 4 points clear. Great Britain and Canada sitting in second place, and there the Americans lurking tied with Denmark. So it's all to play for, and to Emily's point, it's really going to be interesting to see how everyone responds, especially the French, Stevie, because they have shown great form throughout the season.
Yeah, and they need to. I mean, their points are so tight on the season standings that if there are only a couple of races tomorrow and the French stay at the bottom, it could be catastrophic for their season points. So all these teams are going to have to fight really hard. I think New Zealand will be happy with that comeback in the last race. Tom Slingsby, oh, it's ominous that you can bring in super sub Ed Powers and still be leading. But yeah, as Emily said, there's not been many races yet. It's all to play for. It's been great spectating. It's been tense, despite the light winds. Looking forward to it.
So we look forward to tomorrow. Mother Nature providing the win, powered by nature, as SailGP continues their first foray into Southeast Asia and the Singapore Sail Grand Prix. Tomorrow we've got 3 races scheduled, but remember that third and final race is only for the top 3 teams. So on behalf of Emily Nagel, Lisa Darmanin, and Stevie Morrison, I'm Todd Harris. We will see you tomorrow for more of the Singapore Sail Grand Prix. So long, everybody.